Thank you to all our features tonight. I'm going to invite the features up really quickly one more time. Everybody, Maria, DJ, if you guys could all come up. We're going to end the night with a very fast question and answer, if there are any questions. I was so happy when that started off with the fish thing, because I promised weirdos and I felt like they delivered right away. They were like, "You want weird? Bam! Fish catalog." So we're just gonna do a quick question and answer, and then we're going to go out into the ice cream village and celebrate our lives. So. And at this point, it's open. If anyone has questions.
Yeah.
Real loud if you can, Rich.
For the musicians, around 1988, a roommate who was a fan of a group called The Residents, and your music reminds me a little of them, and I was wondering if they were any kind of an influence to you, or if there were other influences you could take.
Thanks. That's actually high praise. Thank you very much. I do like The Residents. I actually don't know their music that much. I know more about their production design, which is also pretty mind-blowing. And actually, recently, it was some of their costuming and lighting is something we've been looking at for some other ideas we have.
I'm going to wear giant eyeballs, I hope.
Well, they've already done that, so probably not. But we'll think of something, I suppose. But as far as musical influences, I mean, I listen to all kinds of music, and I've listened to all kinds of music since I was little. And it's sort of hard to say. It's just stuff kind of comes out. I don't know, maybe.
No, I'm actually really coming at it from language. I don't play an instrument, and I'm very interested. I love that book, that lake fishing map guide. There's so many awesome words in it. It's a whole vocabulary I didn't know anything about. Spinnerbait, and jig and pig. And you probably know this, right, from reading all your bird books. There's a whole lot of language out there, and as poets, I just think it's super important that we soak it up and get other people to revel in it with us, because the English language is amazing. I love it.
Other questions? I have a question for you.
Okay.
So your book is called Girl King, and as I said, I really love that title, and I'm just wondering if you could talk a little bit about where that title came to you from, what it means to you, and what sort of the overarching connection to the book with that.
Sure, yeah. So the book is called Girl King, and it was called Girl King kind of from the beginning. And I really wanted to screw together what felt like a set of contradictory ideas that shouldn't be a set of contradictory ideas. So I wanted to take, a figure of ultimate power and sovereignty, like a king, and kind of screw that together with, I think, people at least in the contemporary spheres I run around in, who seem to have the least amount of agency and power, and think about, I do think that teenage girls in particular are subjects that I return to oftentimes in my poetry, and I think we have a lot of focus on them, and I think they have a kind of power that they wouldn't necessarily claim for themselves right now. I don't know, it's interesting. I'm not able to articulate all that much about that at the moment, clearly, but in terms of the way the book is structured, it focuses quite a bit on poems that take place in kind of a medieval no place, that play around with ideas of English Twelfth Night festivals where lords of misrule would be elected in these manor houses, and you would have maybe a 13-year-old servant girl bossing everyone around for the night. And in my poems, I kind of took that idea and gave her an axe and then let her kind of go crazy with it. So there's that, and a lot of poems about Midwestern mythology. Poems about a series of serial killings that took place in 1828 in Scotland, where a pair of dudes were murdering a whole bunch of prostitutes, and you hear the dudes' names constantly, but the prostitutes aren't named and nobody knows anything about them. And it's kind of become a joke. When I was living in Scotland, it sort of had become like a thing, like, oh, you know, when you're going out tonight, like, don't get burked, like, name of the killer for Burke and Hare. And it all still seemed really horrifying to me, actually. So I wrote poems from their perspective. A lot of it is just trying to talk about and think about imbalances of power, especially when it comes to women. So it seems like a title for the book. It's making me nervous holding this. Does anyone else have questions?
Other questions? Tom?
BJ?
Yeah.
I was just, your descriptions are so solid and so kind of precise. What I was curious about is, and this is because of my own thinking right now, I'm just curious about what your answer is, what I can learn from it. Do you think your poems resonate, you know, like beyond Washington County? What are you looking for there?
You know, in some ways, you know, when you write personally, I don't worry about it that much. You know, often, you know, I think there's a lot of value in non-autobiographical stuff. Often my stuff winds up being autobiographical. And, you know, I write about what I love, and what I love is where I grew up. And, you know, I love Wisconsin, I love the landscape here, I love the, you know, the lake that I grew up on. You know, and I love my wife and my child now, and that's where a lot of it comes from.
It's on camera right there. So you're saying,
love you, family. Hi, family. Miss you. And you need to trust that in whatever your story is, even if it's a fictional story, if you're telling someone else's story, that there's a piece of the infinite in there. And something that I tell my students often is that the universal is revealed through the specific. So even if no one has ever even been to Wisconsin, everyone's had a first love of some sort, and that's what some of those opening poems were about. Or everybody, you know, wonders about aliens at some point in their lives. You know, especially you know, when you're 10 and looking at the sky and that sort of stuff. And so they're mostly drawn from my life. I make things up when I need to, but the faith is there that the details you choose, even if they're remarkably specific, speak to larger issues of love or death or sex or any one of those big topics. Make sense?
Yep.
Thanks.
I have a question for Becca. I just want to know what you're doing when those voices, those weird little voices, the bluegill voice or the little girl's
What I'm
voice.
technically
What
doing?
are you washing dishes? Like, where do those voices come from in your mind? What are you doing when they talk?
I don't know. No, I just, some of them come out of messing with pedal boards, and it's his fault that I have pedal boards because it's a whole nother story, but there's a lot of guitar pedals in our life, and so he's like, you should try some of these. You could do some looping, you could get some reverb, and then it just went from there. And then when you start discovering you have another voice, and then it's like, that voice can say shit I would never say, personally. That's very interesting in a live performance setting. It also has, though, freed me on the page. I write much different poetry since I started performing a year ago. So I think there's many more characters and weirdos inside of everyone in this room. People just don't feel empowered enough to let them out. You probably have like 5, Shannon, that I can think of right off the bat. So get yourself a pedal board, a little pitch shifter, go crazy. No, it is, I can't tell you exactly. I mean, I think most artists, if they can tell you what and why something happened, probably what they're making is pretty boring. You know, it's like it has to be from some unconscious place in some way. If you're overly conscious about it, it usually falls apart in some way. But if you want to say something?
One of the ways we got started with the characters was we collaborate when we have the full band with Anthony Cox, who's an amazing bass player and also a very strange person. And he, early on in our collaboration, said, listen, I need you to pitch shift my voice up, and I had no idea what he was going to do, and so I did that. And he started on this monologue that was this really interesting and kind of heavy story. I think the first one was either Fuck Books or the one about Trevor. But he'll talk about really heavy stuff. He'll talk about his own experience, you know, as a black man, as a black musician in America, traveling in Europe, or he'll talk about sexual attitudes of guys he's worked with this like crazy high-pitched voice inspired by, if you watch Aqua Teen Hunger Force, there's a character called, well, two characters, Enignock and but inspired by who's this alien with this high voice. But Anthony's really into sort of cartoons and characters like that, and he just thinks it goes together with the kind of stories he tells. From my point of view, I think it enables you to, oddly enough, engage more directly with the story, because sometimes humor does that. It just kind of disorients you as an audience just enough, so you're not really sure what you're supposed to laugh at or how heavy or serious is this, that then you're able to sort of engage more directly. And I think that's how a lot of your stuff works with the characters.
Any other questions or comments for me or Nick or EJ or Bree?
I want to ask one more question, if I can indulge. DJ, I'm just curious. So with your book, yes, I'm really excited that, you know, you were just like, I want to write positive things. I want to just explore that, you know, kind of more like, I guess not ecstatic, but just odes and poetry more. And I'm just curious, what took it there, and if there are other writers that are doing that you are inspired by right now, or if you just feel like, you know, I don't see a lot of that going on.
So the question was more, if you couldn't hear more about like the positive aspect of yes specifically, and are there others who do that? And the real reason that I started doing it was I just tired of myself, really, and tired of writing the same kind of poems. And again, so many poets, the world is just broken, and here's a way it's broken, here's a way it's broken, and it's beautiful sometimes when they can do that, but I got really tired of that, and I was doing it, and you know, I don't necessarily live that broken of a life, and so, you know, it's tough, because even in the more upbeat stuff, there needs to be some sort of tension. There is always some sort of tension, but that tension can be a good thing. Like, you know, the one poem I read about fingernails, about the tension of anticipating having a child. You know, most people associate that with, yes, that's a good thing, but obviously, you know, there's fear and worry and then things that come along there. There are other poets out there. There's a variety of them. You can name either particular poems or particular poets. A lot of poets, there's not a lot of them, but many poets use humor as a way to kind of sidelong address these things. I don't know if anybody's heard of Billy Collins. He's a real famous one. He's the poet laureate. Writes real light-hearted stuff, but that often has a dagger in it somewhere. But there's one other poem specifically related to yes. There's a poem, and I don't quite know how to pronounce her last name. It's Natasha, and her last name is S-A-J-E with an accent over it. Saj, I don't know. Anyways, the poem is called God Says Yes to Me. And I encourage you to go look it up, because it was sort of in my mind. You know, just this very kind of inspirational about, you know, God gives you the permission to do whatever. And I was really struck by that. I really like that. And I actually now give an exercise to my students that says you need to write a poem that uses the word yes 5 times in it, and it needs to be positive, and they hate me for it. And they're like, but we can't do that. And then eventually some of them wind up with something pretty cool.
Thank you so much to all of you for coming out on the first Wisconsin snow of not even winter yet. And thank you, beyond thank yous, to all of our performers today. Give them up for everybody.